Muchísimas gracias a Carlos Fernando, Carlos, Boris, Luzmeli. Eso va con selfie. Qué bueno que pudimos compartir con ellos esta visión interesante. Esa cifra de 300 periodistas ya aglutinados en esta red de periodistas en el exilio. Estoy segura que, como bien señalaba Carlos, es una cifra todavía pequeña, pero que habla de lo que nos está ocurriendo. Miren, la libertad de expresión es la base de toda democracia. Eso lo hemos dicho y no nos vamos a cansar de decirlo. Defenderla, promoverla, vivirla cada día es un compromiso que trasciende redacciones, que trasciende fronteras, que trasciende además generaciones. Por más de 2 décadas, la Sociedad Interamericana de Prensa reconoce a través del Premio Chapultepec a quienes han demostrado un liderazgo ejemplar en la defensa de la libertad de prensa y los valores fundamentales de la democracia. Hoy rendimos homenaje a ese espíritu, al coraje, a la coherencia y a la convicción de quienes entienden que la palabra libre es el cimiento de nuestras sociedades. Con orgullo damos inicio a la entrega del Premio Chapultepec 2025. Para hacer entrega de este reconocimiento, yo quiero llamar a una persona que lidera expansión de marca, partnerships y nuevos modelos de monetización que acercan el periodismo de calidad a más audiencias. Es líder en la evolución del periodismo impreso, es además director global de licencias e innovación en The New York Times. Recibámoslo con un fuerte aplauso, el señor Michael Greenspan.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's truly an honor to be with you today at this 81st Assembly of the General Assembly of the IAPA in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Among the most remarkable achievements in our history of the institution stands the creation of the Chapultepec Index, unveiled in 1994. More than a document, it became a symbol, a beacon that has guided presidents, judges, journalists, and ordinary citizens in the defense of liberty. Its a true innovation was to turn the abstract notion of press freedom into a living principle, a shared, ongoing commitment to uphold democracy. 3 decades later, the flame of Chapultepec continues to shine. With the SALTA Declaration, we have reaffirmed and updated its principles for the digital age. Still, its essence endures as a cornerstone of our mission, the unwavering belief that democracy cannot exist without the freedom of the press. The Chapultepec Grand Prize stands as the highest distinction granted by IAPA. More than a recognition, it is a symbol, a tribute to those who have defended with courage and unwavering conviction the principles that safeguard our freedoms. Among its honorees is a remarkable group of figures and institutions who embody the best of journalism and democracy. The Committee to Protect Journalists, the legendary Marty Baron, Nobel laureate Mario Vargas Llosa, Catalin Botero, Jose Miguel Vivanco, and Arthur Ochs Sulzberger, among others. It is with great pride that we welcome the Thomson Reuters Foundation into the group of institutions dedicated to fostering openness, inclusion, and tolerance in our societies. This decision to grant the award, this honor, was unanimous among IAPA's governing bodies, and rightly so. The Thomson Reuters Foundation has shown an exemplary commitment to freedom of expression and to strengthening journalism across every continent. Through its training programs, digital tools, technical assistance, and above all, its remarkable pro bono legal initiative, TrustLaw, it has provided a lifeline for journalists and media organizations worldwide, helping shield them from censorship, coercion, and intimidation. The work of the Thomson Reuters Foundation clearly embodies the principles of Chapultepec in defense of press freedom, to protect journalists, to promote access to information, and to ensure that truth is never silenced. Therefore, on behalf of the Inter-America Press Association, it is a great honor to present the Chapultepec Index 2025 to the Thomson Reuters Foundation and to welcome here Carolina Henríquez-Schmitz, director of the TrustLaw Foundation, at the foundation. But this recognition is not only for the foundation, it is for all of us, a reminder that press freedom is the beacon that keeps democracy alive. To protect, defend, and renew it every day is our task. And today we celebrate those who, like the Thomson Reuters Foundation, keep that flame burning for the entire world. Thank you. Carolina.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for those kind words, Michael, and many, many thanks to the Inter-American Press Association for this humbling recognition. It's really a great honor to be here today to receive and accept it on behalf of the Thomson Reuters Foundation, especially as a Venezuelan in exile who shares the experience that you heard so powerfully told in the last session. The first principle, as you know, of the Declaration of Chapultepec states that no people or society can be free without freedom of expression and freedom of the press. And it's a principle that acts as North Star for so much of the Foundation's work. But it's a principle that, since that declaration was adopted in 1994, has never felt so fragile, so undermined. According to the VDEM report from 2025, which is a comprehensive, I think the largest global measure of democracy in the world, found that freedom of expression is declining in 44 countries, the highest decline recorded to date. And we are indeed seeing that as authoritarianism is expanding globally, the freedom of the press is eroding at an alarming rate. We're seeing an alarming rise in the deliberate targeting and silencing of journalists by governments and powerful groups desperate to stifle dissent and to control public debate. And as you know, this isn't just something that we see in countries with dictatorial or authoritarian regimes. The clampdown on press freedom takes many different forms and is happening everywhere, including in the world's leading democracies. You don't have to look very far, with the US and Latin America, much of Latin America, experiencing nothing short of a press freedom crisis. As a lawyer, I'll confess I'm probably biased, but among the many myriad types of threats that are being faced by media freedom worldwide, I find the proliferation of legal attacks on journalists and newsrooms the most troubling. It's what keeps me up at night. There are an array of repressive, legislative, regulatory, and other legal threats that are being used to stifle journalists and their ability to operate freely and independently, with grave repercussions for journalists themselves and for the audiences that they serve. These are not only attacks on journalists and journalism, but also on the public's right to know and to make decisions that are informed. These are attacks on democracy. The figures tell a pretty bleak story as well. The Committee to Protect Journalists, whom you've heard about earlier, reports a record number of journalists that were jailed just last year. And 365 reporters remain currently behind bars. Of course, we have China, Israel, Myanmar, Belarus, and Russia among the worst offenders, but they're certainly not alone. And most of these journalists have been jailed under legislation that was originally built to protect people and society, turned into instruments of retaliation, intimidation, and oppression. At the Foundation, we call this weaponization of the law, and it is spreading like wildfire. To understand and raise awareness of the scale of this problem, in 2023, we partnered with Columbia University's Tao Center for Digital Journalism to map the legal threats that journalists are experiencing worldwide. The resulting report revealed an unprecedented growth in legal attacks to journalism and an increasing number of governments that were weaponizing the law to stifle journalism. In fact, nearly 50% of the journalists that we surveyed that were representing 106 countries said that they or their media organization had experienced legal threats, which illustrates the scale of this war on media freedom. Designed to ensnare and cripple journalists, widespread abuses of law range from introduction of legislation that's purporting to be in the interest of national security to the rise in claims of financial crimes or illegal or illegitimate funding to delegitimize the journalist's work. The archetypal example of that is the foreign agent law that has become the highlight of the authoritarian playbook. So foreign agent laws aim to prevent foreign influence in domestic affairs, which arguably is a legitimate action to protect democratic institutions. But over time, autocratic leaders have latched onto the fact that they can abuse these laws to stifle dissent. The playbook often goes as follows. Under the laws, organizations are required to register, organizations that receive foreign funding, are required to register with the Justice Ministry and then submit regular reports around their activities, their finances, and interactions. This is justified to ensure that they are not engaging in political activities, quote unquote, on behalf of a foreign power. But the definition of what a political activity is kept so deliberately vague that it encompasses virtually anything that can influence public opinion, from hosting an educational event to simply printing opinion polls. So once the work has been branded as work for a foreign power, assets from an organization can be frozen, their bank accounts can be closed, and the donations that once kept them afloat cut off. If they refuse to comply, they could face fines and even prison sentences. None of this is news. You've been hearing about it all day. We saw these laws first used in places like Russia and India in the 2010s, targeting often NGOs that were doing election monitoring and human rights advocacy that was undermining the credibility of the government. But very quickly, though, we've seen these expand to be used to target independent media, newsrooms, and individual journalists who are conducting essential public interest reporting on issues like government corruption, election rigging, and war crimes. More and more states are now taking a page out of this playbook. We see it in Central Asia, we see it in Eastern Europe, we see it especially in Latin America. El Salvador, Peru, Paraguay, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Venezuela, my home country, all have either adopted their version of this legislation or have tabled bills in the last few years. And this is just one of myriad ways in which the law is being weaponized to silence journalists and dissent. In the face of this, at the Thomson Reuters Foundation, we expanded our work to include legal programming that strengthens media freedom ecosystems and that looks to help these journalists and newsrooms better protect and defend against these legal threats. We couple that with our decades-long media development programming and aim to provide a holistic approach that helps tackle the increasing and evolving challenges that are plaguing media freedom and media freedom actors around the world. This work has increasingly involved, of course, supporting exiled media, who are increasingly forced to flee their countries due to the weaponization of the law. And we help them set up their operations in new jurisdictions and navigate new legal landscapes to ensure that they can continue doing their critical public interest reporting. And we hope to do more of that with many of you in the room today. Take the case of El Salvador, where the Journalists Association registered over 40 journalists that were fleeing the country in the months that preceded the adoption of the foreign agent law earlier this year. They didn't need to wait and see how this played out. They've seen this film before. At the foundation, we've been supporting some of these media organizations with their legal needs moving into exile. We help them with structuring and incorporating in a new country, understanding tax laws, registering trademarks, even accessing legal support for employment matters, all essential to do their work and continue their operations. As lawfare against journalists escalates in intensity and complexity, lawyers play a critical role in safeguarding free and independent media. Behind all of those cases that have become household names, Evan Gershowitz, Maria Ressa, Jose Ruben Zamora, there are often unseen lawyers that are representing them, and they're taking remarkable risks to do so. Governments around the world are also increasingly threatening, arresting, and prosecuting lawyers to deter them from representing journalists. The typical tactics include targeting their ability to practice their profession, disabling them through criminal suits, among many others. This has become a very effective strategy. It sends an unequivocal message, not just to the lawyer, but to the entire legal profession. If you pursue these cases, we will go after you. The potential chilling effect can't be understated. Take the case of Jose Ruben Zamora, which epitomizes this trend. Everyone here will be familiar with Zamora's arrest after El Periódico reported on alleged corruption by then-President Alejandro Yamatei. But what you might not be as familiar with is what happened to his legal defense. So Zamora had, his first few lawyers included Mario Castañeda and Romeo Montoya, and just 5 days after taking on the case, they were informed that at pretrial hearings that the Guatemalan Special Prosecutor's Office was going to initiate an investigation into both of them for alleged conspiracy to obstruct justice. A few months later, they issued arrest warrants and they were charged criminally. In the case of the legal team who replaced them, Juan Francisco Solorzano, Fopa, and Justino Brito, the pattern was almost carbon copy. Investigations, alleged obstruction of justice, followed by issuance of arrest warrants and criminal charges. By the time we got to Zamora's third lawyer, Cristian Ulate, the threat of persecution was so grave that he fled the country and was reporting that he was being followed, all of his cases collapsed, and the pressure was being placed on the Guatemalan Bar Association to revoke his license. Remarkably, despite these types of risks, lawyers continue to courageously put themselves forward to defend press freedom. The Foundation remains steadfastly committed to facilitating that defense. We're incredibly proud to be one of the founding members of the Legal Network for Journalists at Risk that offers a single access point to connect journalists with specialist legal counsel, including legal defense, monitoring, strategic litigation, redress for rights violations. But we want to do more than simply react to these attacks in the moment when it's often too late. We're laser focused on a more proactive mission to build the legal resilience of the independent media ecosystem as a whole. We want to ensure newsrooms not only are better positioned to withstand these threats, but also able to limit their exposure in the first place. We do this through the Legal Service for Independent Media, which draws on our TrustLaw network. It's a global network of over 120,000 lawyers who are willing to give up their time, their expertise, and know-how to equip nonprofit organizations, journalists, and newsrooms to counter legal threats and strengthen their resilience and sustainability. Lawyers in our network are now providing newsrooms with counsel on vital issues like data protection, defamation, due diligence, foreign funding requirements, ultimately mitigating the risk of abusive lawsuits. They're compiling invaluable resources like checklists for journalists to tick off before publishing a report or story that might be sensitive, minimizing their legal liability. They're running bespoke workshops for newsrooms to pinpoint their legal vulnerabilities, and they're guiding exiled media and exiled newsrooms around the world through the process of registering legal entities and dealing with all of the legal know-how necessary to maintain operations and maximize revenue and remain sustainable. While it's true that we're at a precarious moment for global press freedom, the level of collaboration and impact that we are seeing through our network gives me tremendous hope. It shows that newsrooms and journalists are by no means alone in this moment. The legal community stands firmly by their side. And as the media landscape continues to evolve and threats to the press emerge like never before, it's imperative that we continue to expand and deepen our work. Never has the work of the Inter-American Press Association and the work of everybody in this room been more critical. We're deeply grateful for this recognition. More importantly, we're really grateful for all of your work, and we look forward to collaborating with you in the unwavering defense of press freedom. Thank you.